We are one day away from the Alamo Bowl. It feels these bowl games, Adam. I know we don't cover them very often. When we do, it always feels like it's a long time in between games, right? Because it's about a month, but we're finally here, a day away. And today, the head coaches, Kalani Sitake and Coach Prime, obviously for Colorado, talked to us today, and they clearly are ready for the game, but they also clearly have a lot of love and admiration for each other.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of times you get into like a press conference joint setting like that, and the coaches are always going to kind of say the right things, and but there is definitely a bromance that has butted between Coach Prime and Kalani Sitake, and it's a they have some connections, similar connections, but they're also both men that rely heavily on their faith, and so that's another area in which they have a lot of admiration for each other. This is two teams, as they said in the press conference, that were expected to finish low in this conference. And so there's an importance to this Alamo Bowl with these two teams that were in a four-way tie for the top of the regular season standings in the conference. That they both have something they want to prove out here on this field on Saturday night.
Yeah, and Coach Sitake mentioned it that everybody's playing. I mean, I know BYU had a safety jump in the portal. Obviously, Colorado had Nikai Hill-Green. But other than that, maybe it's some injuries. But for the most part, guys are playing, and that's unique in college football right now. In these bowls that are not in the CFP. We saw DJ Giddens did not play for K-State in their bowl game and other players. But I think that's going to make this one a lot more interesting is that you've got pretty much the full teams.
You got a Heisman Trophy candidate that's going to be out here playing. You've got,
Heisman Trophy winner.
Heisman Trophy winner,
Yeah.
And one of the top quarterbacks, if not the top quarterback in college football, that are going to be out there. And then on the other side, you've got a BYU team that's got some really talented players as well that has pro aspirations. So, yeah, I think in this new era of college football, a lot of these bowl games are just hard to get really excited about. And this is one, though, where the importance is still there. And it's two programs. I know you asked about it, and Coach Prime didn't bite, but can really kind of springboard, the winner on Saturday into the off season.
Yeah, I think for both these programs it can be that. Yeah, neither one of them bid on that question, but I think that for both of them, having down seasons last year, good seasons this year, I think it can be a big deal for them going into in the future. And with both these coaches, I think both teams are in good hands. And when I'm watching both of them next to each other, there's a lot of similarities. They're both very old school. They played off each other really well. I mean, that was it was almost like Shiloh and Shador. When we get them, but that was one of the best duos we've seen up there. They clearly like each other, but I think it's because there's a lot of similarities in how they operate. I think they're both old school coaches. I think they both love mentoring young people, and I think that they've kind of bonded over that. I don't know if they've talked about it, but I think that kind of makes them like each other because they're sort of similar.
Yeah, Kalani Sitake is a former fullback, and Merrill Hodge was one of my favorite players as a kid. I love that position, and so he kind of brings that mentality with him to his team. And with Coach Prime getting hired at Colorado, I thought that there would be this flash that would be kind of the hallmark of these Coach Prime teams, and there's a lot of really skilled players, but the core of it is hard work and work ethic, and that's maybe the biggest misnomer that is out there about Deion Sanders as Coach Prime, as a head coach. We even heard the players talk yesterday about what it takes to succeed, and it's in the word survival was used in there. Like, you have to work so hard to make it in Coach Prime's program. I think if they continue to win football games, folks will finally realize that. In getting to 10 wins on Saturday would be part of that, to get to that plan of people appreciating that he's not just a flashy head coach, that he's also got a lot of substance behind it.
Yeah, and BYU has that. I mean, this is their third 10-win season, I think, in the last 5 years. A couple of the players told me the fifth-year seniors, they've had 3 10-win seasons. So they've had that. They've got some substance behind them. Coach Prime is still getting there because he hasn't been doing it as long. Not because he doesn't have it, but because he hasn't been doing it as long. And this would go a long way, like you said, if they can get to 10 wins. 9 wins has already done it, in my opinion. But if you can get to 10, that's just that level that, like, wow, okay, that's a mark that you look at and say, that's not reached very often in Colorado history. Well, and in a lot of programs' history, you know, obviously in Ohio State or Michigan, something like that's different. But for a lot of programs, a 10-win season doesn't come around very long.
Yeah, and you also would love to break that bowl losing streak. You know, it's been since '04 since they won a bowl. To be able to kind of put that behind them and in the past would be, I think, a good thing for this program as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite comments from the coaches today was Sitake was saying, he said, "Look, both these teams love to play football, and you can tell when you watch the tape." He goes, "I really think that if there was no fans, no cameras, we'd still want to go out there and play." And then Coach Prime, well, I love that comment. Then Coach Prime jumped in and says, "Oh, we'd have at least one camera there."
Yeah, you know, there are some differences in there as well in terms of how they operate their program. But no, I Coach Prime has been able to give this program exposure like we never thought was even possible.
Yeah.
And you've seen that really make them on some level hated by some folks but loved by others, and it's become this polarizing program, but it's a program that's being talked about nationally, and it's been pretty incredible to just cover that. But then you get out here to Alamo Bowl and you know, things are pretty normal. It's not like, you know, this crazy environment around here. There really is a pretty solid foundation being laid down.
Well, we've seen it throughout the year. Coach Sitake is just the latest one of a lot of coaches have talked about their respect for Coach Prime in this program. And maybe some of it they say it because it's coach speak, but I think for a lot of them you can really see that they have that respect because they realize it's a pretty good program. They know what they're doing. Coach Sitake mentioned about the football IQ that he sees with the Buffs, and so I think there's been a lot of praise as people have gone along and said, "Wow, okay." There's maybe some flash, but there's a lot of substance to it as well.
Yeah, and Kyle Willingham was brought up in today's press conference, and he saw what Colorado's program was before Coach Prime got to Boulder. So I think it's pretty easy for someone like that to really recognize that there's been a massive shift that's taken place in Boulder.
Yes, he's seen it all from Colorado. So let's get into game predictions because the game is tomorrow. How do you think this one's going to go? Games are never easy to project, but maybe this is the easier bowl game to project because almost everybody's playing.
Yeah, and the motivation is there for both teams. That's clear. Yeah. So, yeah, it's not one of those bowl games where you're kind of trying to factor in the motivation in there. This is let's look at both football teams, and you look at BYU, and they are fundamentally sound. What they do is they take advantage of your mistakes. Yeah. It's not an offense that ranks really highly in terms of yards, but their defense does such a good job of creating takeaways. Tied for the lead in the FBS ranks with 20 interceptions this season. So if Colorado plays smart football offensively, and that's been, you know, Shedeur Sanders throughout his college career has been a smart quarterback. Yeah, there's been a throw here and there, but throughout the course of a game, he makes really smart decisions. And so I think it's a good matchup for Colorado, but it's going to be one where, again, you have to limit those mistakes. I want to say that they need to be a little bit more balanced offensively because BYU, their run defense is not the best in the country, and so you might have a chance to make some plays there, but we've said that with so many preview videos, and it doesn't happen, and a lot of them, they still get enough passing yards to mitigate that issue, but that would be one thing, especially Michael Welch, I think is a little bit healthier now. To be able to get that going a little bit would be big in this game, but it's not a BYU team that's going to beat themselves, so if you make mistakes, they will take advantage of it, and they will win this game, but again, I think that Colorado is going to play smart enough football to eke out a 35-34 victory here at the Alamo Dome on Saturday.
All right, and to your point about the run game, we talked about Oklahoma State. They had the worst run defense in the Big 12, and CU still couldn't run the ball. So they can clearly win without doing that. BYU, you're right. I mean, very opportunistic. With interceptions, they've got 4 touchdowns on returns this year. They got one of the more dangerous, returners in the country, Keelan Marion, who is All-American, I believe, was a kick returner or punt returner? I can't remember. But it was one of them. Okay. But he's had a couple of touchdowns, so they're opportunistic. They've got a really good defense, number 1 defense in the Big 12. So I expect them to come out and play, really hard. I don't see this as a shootout, in the 40s, things like that. But I think CU wins this football game. I just anytime you have Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter playing, I feel really confident picking the Buffs. I'm going to go 31-27. And part of that is because Mata needs to hit a field goal. I want to see Mata hit one more field goal. And, so I was going to go 35, but I'm like, that wouldn't be a field goal for Mata. I want to see him hit one more field goal. So he does have, he's hit 10 in a row. We want to see 11. So I want to see 11. I don't know about you, but I'm going to go 31-27 Buffs. And anything else as we wrap this up?
Well, it's going to be an emotional situation tomorrow night after the game, no matter what happens, and so much of the focus is going to be on it being Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter, and Shiloh Sanders' last game with Coach Prime as their head coach. But Coach Prime started listing off other guys that have really laid down the foundation for the future of this CU program under Coach Prime. Cameron Silman Craig, Chidozie Wankwo, Vonta Bentley. There's so many guys. Offensively, LeJontay Wester gets to wear 1 in his last game. He gets his grades up. Will Shepard bounced back from some adversity this season. And there's just so many guys that have made their mark on this Colorado program. Yeah. And so I think it's going to be tough to see them, once the seconds tick down, end their career with the Buffs.
Well, and guys like Jimmy Horn, Coach Prime has taken under his wing so much. Said he was just a couple weeks ago at the prison with Jimmy visiting his father, and he also mentioned, he said, "Look, I know Travis is going to bring out some emotions because that's what he always does." So it's going to be it'll be interesting to see what those emotions look like. He's been good at holding him back to this point, and so we'll see what it's like on Saturday night, and we'll be back after the game to talk about it, to see how the Alamo Bowl turned out.